Okay.
There we go. Hello, everybody.
Hello. Thanks for joining us today.
Big topic today, guys.
It is.
Strap in, buckle up.
So we've talked about this before.
We have.
We talk about it all the time.
A lot.
A lot. But have you ever heard the term that your genes load the gun, your environment pulls the trigger? I feel like this really couldn't be more true when we talk about diabetes. So we are going to cover a lot about it today, but we're not going to get into the super, super deep science of it. But we want you guys to understand how much of a lifestyle disease is. The way that we live our lives really can contribute, make this disease happen. So
I think we'll probably talk quite a bit about disease process, but we're not going to talk pharmacotherapy.
There you go. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I think it relate to a lot of people, right? I mean, there's a lot of people that suffer from this disease, or the consequences of the disease long term. But yeah,
I mean,
a lot of people. And if there's, and look, I mean, at least half the population in the States has prediabetes type 2 or type 1. That's a lot of people.
Right.
And trending higher.
Sure. And I mean, I swear, if I had $1 for each email I get with a question of what to take, what to do for type 2 diabetes, guys, I'd be a billionaire. It's a lot. These questions come in every single day. So I just wanted to have a fresh new discussion about it and really motivate you guys to either if you are diabetic or pre-diabetic, things that you can do to work on reversing this. Or if you're on the other side and you're not there, the chances of getting there can be pretty high.
Even for people like you and I, we watch our sugars closely. We watch our A1C, our 3-month average closely. We get our insulin tested. Yeah. We're very much cognizant and aware that we could potentially trend into prediabetes range.
Right. You have to be aware of it all.
Got to be aware of it all.
Everybody, this is for every single one of you.
All of us. So
if you're sitting there thinking, I'm fine, I don't have diabetes, stay tuned.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're one of those skinny people where you fall into that skinny fat category where the sarcopenia, you also are at high risk for prediabetes and diabetes.
Right. Yes.
So it's not just an outward appearance of the phenotype of being skinny.
Correct. 100%. So we'll talk about some of the causes, best diet or ways to eat, exercise, movement. Really, disease is secondary to type 2 diabetes, which is kind of scary thinking about it all. And then, we'll circle back and hit home on some of our supplements that can help you guys in the process.
And we try not to offend anybody along the way because, quite frankly, this can get really kind of heated into a lifestyle component. Like, why are you not doing more for yourself? Why are you not working harder? This kind of thing.
Sure.
And we promise we'll pump the brakes on that. But we are very passionate about lifestyle. We are very passionate about disease prevention.
Yes.
And so sometimes it comes across that way. And I just want you guys to know we have your best interest in mind.
Very true. Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. So just a little bit of, statistics. I mean, obviously, it's a chronic disease. Type 2 diabetes is a chronic, and we're sticking with type 2. Type 2 diabetes is
and prediabetes, yeah.
And prediabetes, yes. It's a chronic disease. 537 million adults ages 20 to 79 worldwide have type 2 diabetes. This is from 2021, and it's projected to increase to 643 million worldwide by 2030. These are very scary numbers. And also just knowing we are so educated on this, but yet the numbers the projection just continues to go up and up. So, and really when it comes to Americans, it's about 1 in 10. 1 in 10 Americans is not even pre-diabetic. This is type 2 diabetic.
Yeah, that's not actually all that accurate, I don't think.
I don't know. It's 38 million Americans, which is about 1 in 10. I don't know. Adults.
Yeah.
And, again, we're just saying adults too, but what's also happening more?
Childhood, yeah. Sure.
Childhood type 2 diabetes. And that is very sad, very, very, very sad, because there's so much that can be done. That's what we're really going to talk about. So type 2 diabetes, Ryan's going to do a nice paint a picture for us, but really it occurs when the body doesn't produce enough insulin or the cells don't react, right?
Yeah. No, the body continues to produce a lot of insulin with insulin resistance.
Cells become resistant.
Right. And then over a long-standing period of time with type 2 diabetes, your insulin level, the secretion of insulin will decrease, you're right, over time. But in the beginning, it amps it up. It pushes more. Right. Because your body's resistant to it. It's not yet responding to it.
So it's wondering why. So
it's why is this blood sugar still so high? Why are you not using the sugar for energy and growth?
Right. Because insulin's a hormone, and what it's designed to do is help the body help the cells absorb the glucose to use them for energy.
Sure.
Right. So when your body's resistant to that, clearly that's not happening. We're not using that sugar for energy. And what is it doing when we're not using it for energy?
Storing as fat. Yeah. Yep. Many times goes into fat storage.
Yeah. So let's just paint the picture.
Yeah,
it's
of course.
What I want you to visualize.
And I think it's a good practice to run through this real quick. So the problem with reactive sick care and the whole Western model, and really most of the world now, is that there's no interruption in the continuum of care. There is no continuum of care really. Like if you're pre-diabetic, well, that's even before that, right? If you had the high end of normal, what we talked about is optimal levels a lot,
right.
blood levels.
Yes.
Most physicians aren't even really kind of talking to you about your high end of normal blood sugar. They're just not. There's nothing they can do about it. Your primary care is pretty much going to be like whatever. It's not even like a flag yet. So like the high 90s, call it your fasting blood sugar.
Right.
Then like in your low 100s, 110, 123, 120 in that range, you're pre-diabetic. Maybe the doc says something at that point. Maybe not. Probably not, because there's not a diagnosis code. There's not really a way for them to offer you any care. Now you bump up to 126 and you go higher, all of a sudden you're diabetic, you get a prescription, you get follow-ups, you get all these different things, educational materials through how to manage your diabetes with your medication, so on and so forth.
Right, and you're just talking about blood sugar.
That's strictly on fasting blood sugar, but there's also other metrics that we would encourage you to know, like know your A1C. That's your 3-month average of your blood sugar. You should know that. It should be under 5.7. That's an awesome indicator. You should know what your fasting insulin or your insulin levels look like. And then for those of you that are on that threshold of being concerned and have some concern, an oral glucose tolerance test, as bad as it sucks, because you have to, I forget, like that big sugary drink you drank and then monitor your sugar.
So for those of you females that have had babies, like we typically
they sometimes have it during pregnancy to make sure. So the OGTT, the oral glucose tolerance test, is a really high predictability on like where you stand as far as your insulin response and diabetes. So that's helpful information for those of you out there. But if you don't even know your fasting sugar, you can literally go get a glucometer from the grocery store and test your sugar at home fasting and postprandial after food. And you can search online for the normal levels, but like you got to know your numbers. You have to absolutely know what your fasting is, your postprandial. Like you should know your A1C. And if you don't, it's time for blood work because you're past due. Like that's just much needed. And it's normal to see the A1C. That's not foreign for a physician to look at that. Right.
And also, again, how we always talk about, taking your healthcare, into your own hands. Look at your trends. So when you get your blood work back, get if it doesn't have side by side of like your past, your previous 2 blood tests, ask for them. Look at your numbers and see, wow, what the, 6 months ago I was this number, and then 3 months ago I was that. Ooh, look at me, I'm going up.
Yeah.
If that's the case, guys, you really need to have this is a wake up call. It's a warning sign. This is a big warning.
There are signs, right? If those numbers are going up, you have a strong correlation to watching your waistline grow too.
Right.
And watching your activities decrease, watching your libido plummet, watching your energy, your free energy plummet, watching your sleep quality go down. Like, so you have all these different things that are happening, and it should actually absolutely come as no surprise that you're probably getting pre-diabetic, type 2 diabetic.
Right.
Because those are the things that sort of start to happen from a metabolic perspective as your prediabetes progresses into type 2 diabetes.
Right.
So
the quick picture.
And that's not normal aging, guys.
Right.
That is not normal aging.
Good point. The quick picture is, so we eat a piece of food.
Yeah.
Right. And so the body secretes insulin to take that glucose up, to utilize it. Right.
Yeah.
And if you're insulin resistant, the body puts that insulin out, but your body's resistant to it. So therefore it's not using it. And then it puts out more, and it keeps putting out more. Blood sugar's high. Nothing is happening. We're not utilizing that blood sugar for energy. Now, in a healthy body that is not resistant, the insulin gets put out after we eat, and it takes up that blood sugar, gets it out of our bloodstream, right? And we use it for energy. So it really can be as simple as that. So we need to make sure we take precautions and we do things if we're insulin resistant. One of the biggest ones, you want to start with diet? Kind of feel like, to me, like diet and exercise, they're both like so equally important, but let's just talk about diet. And now I'm not going to give you real diet advice on how to specifically eat if you're a diabetic, but there's so many things there's so many leading physicians out there right now that are saying like, avoid the carbohydrates. And so we have proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. Eat low carbohydrate. But carbohydrates are not essential. Essential means that that we need them for survival, or our body doesn't make them, but we make glucose, right? So we do make, so carbohydrates are not essential. And if you are pre-diabetic, diabetic, if you have problems, if you're insulin resistant, what's the point of putting carbohydrates in if your body's not able to utilize it properly? And by carbohydrates, guys, we hear a lot about sugar. Carbohydrates are sugars, yes. Breads, pastas, grains, oatmeal. And I know some things like that, like oatmeal, it's a soluble fiber. It does have a lot of benefits, but I mean, each body's unique. And this is why we like the continuous glucose monitors. If you don't know of that, you can look it up too. You can get one from your doctor, but it's one
that's not entry level though. That's for
just, I mean, to common knowledge.
Sure.
Common knowledge.
Sure.
To know how things, I mean, there's many healthy people walking around wearing them to have the awareness of how their body reacts to certain foods. So think about proteins and fats. Think about high quality proteins and high quality fats, right? Your lean meats, your healthy low mercury fish, eggs, dairy, just beans. Beans are a carbohydrate, but they're a great soluble fiber. So they really, really actually are beneficial. So just think about avoiding the sugars. And I know fruit is extremely healthy, but because it is sugar. It is sugar. So you have, when you're here, I want you to think about more on the low glycemic index. So glycemic index is certain food, when you're low on the glycemic index, there are certain foods that take longer to increase blood sugar. So you want to focus on those. I mean, berries are lower.
I think it's a fair thing for people to reference the glycemic index. Yeah, they want to see how fast it causes your blood sugar to spike.
Right.
How fast? Basically, the time release of the food to causing a blood sugar spike.
Right. So just kind of.
It's a good guide. It's a good guide because you're right. Like the fruits and the sugars and things like that. Like some fruits are very high in sugar.
Right.
Some are lower.
And it's hard because
you got to know these
fruits are
things.
healthy.
Yep.
But yet, if you're having
insulin resistance,
they're